Ladies, gentlemen, this is the Greatest Asset Community Podcast. I'm your host, Frederick Middlebrooks, and I am joined by real estate veteran Cynthia Davis. She has over 30 years of experience in the real estate industry. She is a business owner of Alert Properties and Alert Real Estate School as well. And so she just has a wealth of knowledge and has seen many different markets, including some challenging markets. And we are currently going through a challenging market right now. So we are going to be bringing you more information on a regular weekly basis to just keep you updated with some things that are going on in the market and give you our perspective on how this can affect you and what some of the pros and the cons are about some of the things that we see happening. So if you haven't been following through the podcast, I'll give a brief introduction about myself. Again, my name is Frederick Middlebrooks, and I am a licensed loan officer or licensed loan originator, mortgage loan originator. So I help people get the financing to be able to purchase homes. And so that is my joy, it's my passion, it's what I love to do. And I'm also a realtor as well. I am a licensed real estate agent. But the majority of the capacity in which I operate in is as a loan officer. Again, that's what I love to do, and it is my passion. So without further ado, Cynthia, how are you doing today? How are things going?
It's a great day today. It's off to an amazing start. I'm excited to be here. Looking forward to what evolves from this podcast.
Oh, yes. And we've got some good topics, two main topics that we're going to be discussing. One of them we'll jump right into is talking about rent control. And so if you are a renter in this market, you have probably felt the strain of, the inflation that's happening right now. Cost of goods and services are going up. But then on top of that, you have landlords who are increasing rent. And part of that is also to keep up with inflation and the cost that they're experiencing on their end, maybe with increased taxes and things like that. So these are, some of the things that we're going to be discussing just so that we can get a little bit better viewpoint or more, balanced view of what some of the pros and the cons are. So getting into what kind of spawned this topic today, there was a U.S. Supreme Court that rejected the challenge to New York's rent control system. So to give a brief background, a lot of the homes in New York City are under what's called a rent control law or rent control system. And what that does is it limits how much landlords are able to increase their rent in any given year. And so this affects about 1 million homes in New York City. And that equates to about 28% of the total homes within New York City and about 44% of the rentals that are within New York City. So there's a lot of homes that we're talking about that are affected by this rent control. So you had a group of people that were wanting to challenge this decades-old rent control system. And it is decades old. This thing came into existence, I believe, in 1969. So it's been around for a while in New York City. And they are wanting to challenge that the provisions that tie the maximum rents to the local cost of living are unconstitutional, and they want to change those laws or basically get rid of those rent control laws. So as you can imagine, the people that are challenging them are landlords. They're people who own the homes that are being rented out. And so the Supreme Court rejected to hear this challenge at all. So it's not even going to, be heard by the U.S. Supreme Court, which, neither here nor there. But what we want to discuss more so in this podcast is what are some of the pros and the cons of having a rent control system. Until reading this article, I wasn't aware of rent control systems being in place, because living in the Atlanta metropolitan area, that's not something that we have instituted here, at least currently, in the Atlanta metropolitan system area. But then after doing some research, there are some other states and areas that do have these rent control laws. Los Angeles has rent control laws that were put in place. Some of them more recently, as in 2019 being put in place. Oregon also has rent control laws put in place as well. So want to take a little bit of time to discuss what some of the pros and the cons are of these rent control laws. And so I guess I'll get things kicked off on we'll talk about the pro side first. We'll talk about what some of the positives are. And I think up front, one of the positives is a big win for the tenants, because tenants don't have to experience a huge payment shock due to what may be happening in the environment around them, or maybe a landlord that has experienced a big loss, perhaps with some investments that they may have made, or with some repairs that need to be done. And so they try and quickly make up the ground for that loss by drastically increasing the rent on the tenant. And so one of the positives is that's something that tenants won't have to worry about. They can rest assured that their rent, though it may and probably will increase, is going to be at a slower pace than this drastic 15% increase in rent, because that's what the landlord is requiring. So I think that's one of the positives as well. But Cynthia, how about you jump in here and let me know what's some of the positives that you see on your end?
I totally agree with you that that is a positive. And then when we stretch that as far as I see it a little bit further, for the tenant, it is a huge positive because it can help them regain financial stability without, as you say, the concern of an unexpected jump in their rental amount. So they're able to budget and able to get in a system which will help them be constant and know what to expect. Another thing is that I think it helps them to become stable. If they can get in a system that works for them, the payment works for them, it also helps that family to become stable in that neighborhood, because they are not concerned with the unexpectancy of increased rent. So they can now get kind of seated and rooted and grounded in that neighborhood, and the children, if involved, they can know that they can be comfortable and not be concerned about having to move around and jump around, which is a huge benefit for a family. So, and children love the stability. Hey, adults, I like stability. So having that tool in place helps them to become stable and release that tab in their mind of, dealing with the unknown, because they know the end from the beginning.
And I agree with that as well, with the stability, because a lot of people, if rents do jump up exponentially, then that is a reason why a lot of people do end up moving to a different location. But then, like you said, you're uprooting and moving to a different location. Maybe you have to be in a different school district now, so your kids are having to change schools. Maybe you're a little bit further away from your job, and that's going to increase your commute times. So maybe that puts a little bit of an extra strain on what it is that you're trying to do. Maybe it's costing you more in gas, costing you more in time, whatever it is that's now shifting your life. And it doesn't have to be for the negative. Maybe it causes you to find a better place as well. But whatever it may be, the place that you're in right now, you've chosen for a reason. And one of those reasons is that you can afford to live there. So if that becomes no longer the case where you can't afford to live there anymore, then perhaps that's something that we want to, if at all possible, try to avoid doing, with having to destabilize families and homes that are a big asset to the community, whether it be helping to work in the community, paying taxes to the communities. Obviously, having that stability is really what helps the community when you don't have the constant turnover of who's there, and the dynamics of the neighborhood that can change and everything like that. So no, I completely agree with the stability and everything like that. So outside of there being the big, obviously, help to the tenants, there are, with the stability, all of the other additional things that come from tenants having a more solid base, like you alluded to, with the stability, but also with being able to save for retirement, being able to save for an emergency fund, when more of the consumer dollar is not having to go toward paying rent, more of that money can go into savings, or it can go back into the economy to help stimulate the economy, whether it be through the purchasing of goods and services, which, as we know, living in a capitalistic society, that is a huge part of what makes it work, is people being out there and willing to spend that money. But if people don't have the money to spend because it's all being consumed in rent, that's something that can affect the economy as well, in a negative way, because now people are paying so high cost of rent that they can't enjoy some of the entertainment that people like to get out and enjoy, and need to take a break from, all of the strain or the stress that they might be under. Maybe they want to go out and go to a restaurant or go see a movie, or go shopping, whatever it might be. They don't have the money to be able to do that. And then you can even go as far as to say maybe that affects people's mental capacity as well, because you have the mental component to that, which is now, okay, people are more depressed, and we're getting into that season as we enter into fall, depression season, if you will. So there's a lot of other effects that can come simply from people just not having the money, or the ability to pay extra money that's going toward rent, a larger and larger portion of their income that goes toward rent, especially if their income is not increasing at an equivalent rate to what the rent is increasing. Maybe the rent's going up at, a 5% increase, but their income hasn't gone up at all. So, or maybe the income has only gone up 1% or 2%. So now, that portion of the rent is going to really, hit a little bit harder towards that income.
Right. And they feeling the squeeze. People are feeling the squeeze. And when you feel that squeeze, then stress sets in. And just as you talked about, mental stress. And then we all know stress affects the body as well. So for the tenant, I can see it being a huge benefit. And at the same time, I'm not sure, Frederick, I think that when I was reading about this, and that there is a part in this oversight that is being given where repairs and maintenance must also be maintained, or did I misread on that? So for the tenant, that would be a huge plus if the landlord is getting oversight and making sure that the unit stays habitable.
No, absolutely. And on that note, I want to shift a little bit, and let's talk about some of the things on the other side of the coin. What would be some of
That
the
works.
negatives that would happen with rent control being a thing that is happening with a few cities around the country? And so one of the things off the bat would be landlords not getting the income that they need to properly maintain their units, properly maintain their properties and everything. So you have income that comes in from the landlords, and much of that is not just going into the landlord's pockets, but a lot of it goes toward paying for costs and expenses, as well as going into savings to cover costs and expenses that are going to arise. If you've ever owned a property, or if you desire to own a property, then you already know, or you will soon find out, that something's going to break. Something's going to need to be repaired or replaced. Nothing lasts forever. And so the landlords need to get that money in so that they can pay their taxes, pay their mortgages, because there are a lot of these properties that are not owned free and clear. They have mortgages on them. And so they need to be able to pay the mortgages, pay the taxes, but they also need to be able to cover if the roof needs to be repaired or replaced, because at some point that's going to happen, if the HVAC system needs to be fixed, if the water heater needs to be repaired or replaced, maybe you have a leaking faucet or you have a pipe that burst and that needs to be repaired or replaced. Maybe the carpet has been worn to the point to now the flooring needs to be replaced. These are all things, maybe paint needs to happen. There is an ever, a non-ending list of
Right.
things that continually need to happen to maintain a property the way it's supposed to be maintained. The cost of doing those things increases. The cost of repairing an HVAC today is not the same that it cost back in 2000 or in the 90s. The cost of, a roof is more expensive. The cost of a water heater is more expensive. The cost of goods and services as a whole goes up over time, but through inflation and everything. So with that, the cost of rent also goes up because the cost to cover all these expenses goes up. But if the cost that the landlords are having to bear is not keeping is exceeding rather what they're receiving on the end from the tenants in the form of rent and everything like that, then let's say, how long does it take now for that landlord to get to that leaky shower head that you might have? Or how long does it take for that landlord to get to that water heater that you have, which now needs to be replaced and is not really adequately providing hot water throughout the house? How long is it going to take for that landlord to get to those items that need to be fixed and repaired? So that's one thing I would say on the negative side.
And if I hear you correctly, what you're saying is now the squeeze is flipped. So now the landlord is feeling the squeeze because there's not enough income coming in to take care of the increase in maintenance and providing the services to the tenant that the tenant desires or should have. But at the same time, as you already know, I am a firm advocate for fair housing. And so I think housing should be for all. But once someone has made that commitment to purchase a property, where I'm kind of not feeling so warm and fuzzy about is now that homeowner, the landlord, is being controlled out of something that they have the right to have because they purchased it. Is it fair for them to bear the burden that someone else has put a cap on them? And so I see it from the landlord's view as well. That was a decision they made. Now it appears as though the financial benefit for them is being capped at someone else's expense.
And so no, I agree with that completely. And I think that it is, it's tough because there is the huge, 800-pound gorilla that the housing market is to our economy. People need homes to live in, but the money that's generated through housing also helps move the economy, and it can have a huge effect on the economy. We saw that in 2008 when we had, the Great Recession, and we had all of these foreclosures on the market where all these loans were made to people who couldn't afford the mortgages. And so now you've got all these foreclosures and the effect that had on the mortgage-backed securities market and all the people that invest in mortgage-backed securities and invest in that debt. And the system pretty much broke down on itself. And so we saw how big of an impact housing can have on an economy. And even when it happened here, the effect that has on the world. So, I mean, housing is a huge proponent of our economy and how things operate. So on the one hand, it's like I completely get the governments, the state governments and the local municipalities wanting to protect that housing infrastructure and making sure that they can do what it takes to try and keep it solid, keep it running efficiently and operating well so that we don't run into issues where now we've got landlords or investors who are owning all the properties and tenants who are kind of at the whim of whatever these landlords are wanting to charge. them for their rent and everything. So it's like I get the point of wanting to stabilize the home, and I also get the other side of that, where as a landlord and having also been a tenant as well, I have rented multiple properties. As a renter, excuse me, as a tenant, I have paid rent to landlords for multiple properties. But I'm also a landlord as well now, and I rent out to tenants. And so it's like I get both sides of it. And as the landlord side of it, when you purchase a property, it's under the auspice, or it's under the idea or understanding that this is my property. I can, within the confines of what's legal, I can rent it out and charge what I need to charge to cover my expenses. But now when you have a government or a local municipality telling me what they feel I need to charge, and I'm no longer able to determine what I need to charge based on what my expenses are or what my needs are, with maintaining the job and running a business, because for many landlords and investors, this is a business. And so when I'm now at the whim of, the those who make the law to tell me that, oh, this is what you can charge because this is what should be charged. And even with that, I'll also say, with the New York law, there is a way that a tenant can challenge an increase that has been made, to say that nope, they being the landlords don't need to this amount of increase, because this amount of increase is not needed to cover their operating costs and expenses. So the tenants can even challenge how much a landlord is wanting to increase their rent as well, if the tenant does not feel that it is justified. And so when it comes to things like that, that is something that I truly feel is it can cause some issues, like I said, as a landlord, where I really don't want to be pigeonholed, if you will, to lawmakers telling me how much I need to increase my rent, or the limits of which I can increase my rent, because they feel like, oh, nope, you don't have those type of expenses. When honestly, unless you're truly in my books, or what I guess the details of everything that's going on, you may not know. So that's on the negative side that I could see, and maybe the effect that has on me, maybe not wanting to get into holding properties for people to rent. Maybe I get into other forms of investment. Maybe I look at other places to put my money, or again, like we said earlier, maybe the tenant hurts a little bit in me just pulling back on some of those repairs that need to be made. So
Right. And part of the one factor that makes that landlord tenant wheel operate smoothly is having a good relationship. And when you have a tenant having the right to challenge the ability of the landlord to increase the rent, that is not going to make for a good relationship. And when you have a landlord who is also without restraints to a certain degree as to how much they can increase that rent, also makes the tenant uneasy. So you need that happy median, and where you have someone, a landlord, who will do what is right and fair without the interference from local municipalities or the state government, and where that tenant also is wanting to do the right thing, pay the rent, maintain the property, but a relationship is being built at the same time that can be beneficial for both parties, which I think is a big factor, which is not often factored into the success of being a homeowner and a landlord and a tenant.
alrighty, well, moving on to our second topic of today, we are going to talk a little bit about what are some of the reasons that your home may not be selling. So this is coming from a Wall Street Journal article that was released actually earlier this month on October 3rd, titled, "Why is your home not selling? 5 reasons it's sitting on the market." And so homes have been sitting a little bit more as we have gotten more into this inflationary period, recession, whatever you would like to call it, that we are in right now. And also interest rates that have been going up and up and up has been affecting home prices. And so with that, Wall Street Journal put out this article about 5 reasons that your home may not be selling, because homes are sitting longer on the market. And so according to Realtor.com, the average home spent 46 days on the market in August, and that was up 5 days from a year ago. So homes are, like we said, sitting on the market a little bit longer. So what are some of the reasons why your home may not be selling? So the first reason that was listed is that your home isn't staged. And real estate agents say that staging contributes to homes selling faster more than anything else. And what I say is that staging allows people to be able to see the possibilities of your home or the space within your home. There are some rooms that are multi-purpose rooms within a home. And for some potential home buyers, it's hard for them to see the potential of that space and some of the things that they can do with this room. And so by staging your home, you can help your potential home buyers see the possibilities of what your house can offer them if they decide to move into it, whether it be for an investment or for a primary residence that they are wanting to use for their family. So staging is definitely
Absolutely.
one.
Absolutely, Frederick. I agree with you. But what I want our listeners to understand is staging doesn't mean you take all your furniture necessarily out of the house and bring in new things to stage it with. You can bring a stager into your home, and they can take what you have off the time and reposition it so that it looks like a total new room. Might even make you want to stay there again. But so at the same time, staging can be well, taking out some things that you have that you might need to put in storage for a while so that your house can be actually seen. And sometimes we have a tendency to overpopulate home, but use what you have sometime and allow someone with fresh eyes to come in and take a look at it and reposition those pieces of furniture for you.
Absolutely. And so moving on to number 2, your house needs some upgrades. So this is another reason why they listed in the article that your home might not be selling, is that buyers are looking for move-in ready homes, which is tied to affordability. So higher interest rates have forced many buyers into lower price bracket, meaning that they're less willing to ignore big fixes. And so a lot of people, especially with the inflation that we're experiencing right now, don't have a lot of money to make those big fixes or repairs. So if your home needs some updates in the kitchen, maybe your home needs some updates with some of the appliances that are going to be staying, or maybe your home needs some even bigger repairs like a roof or something like that, with a lot of people already being constrained with the money that they have in the bank because of inflation or living habits, let's just be honest. But also because purchasing a home is not a cheap endeavor. And there's a lot that is put on buyers to purchase, especially when homes are going for 3, 4, 500,000 now, vice the 80,000, 100,000, 150,000 that they used 2 decades ago. And so all of that factors into a lot of the strain that's already put on home buyers when it comes to purchasing a home. They're paying for down payment, which if you're looking at 3.5% of a $300,000 home, that's $10,500 that they're already paying for down payment. Now you adding to that, several $1,000s worth of closing costs. And then you're adding to that, a couple $1,000s worth of prepaids, which are your taxes and your insurance that must be paid up front. And then you add to that, with the interest rate environment that we're in right now, the discount points that have to be paid just to get an interest rate. And so by the time you add all of that up, this buyer could be in it for $25,000 just to purchase a $300,000 home or more. They could be in it for, 20, 25,000, 27,000 just to purchase a $300,000 home. Not to mention if they move into that home and now they got to replace the roof. Now they got to replace the HVAC or a water heater. Now they got to replace or, redo the kitchen, or they got to replace the refrigerator that you're leaving behind, or the stove is on its last leg and they're going to have to, replace the stove. They're already spending so much money to acquire the home. A lot of buyers don't want to now have to put a lot of money into upgrading this home. They want something that's move-in ready. And so making those updates as the seller can really help to attract home buyers when they see that, okay, this is a home that's going to take me for a while without having me to make a lot of updates or upgrades to it.
And what you're saying is, it's no longer that strong seller's market that we experienced from 2020 to just a few months ago. It is leaning to being a buyer's market now. So sellers, we need for you to shift your thinking, refresh your thinking. You're not as much in the driver's seat as you once were.
Number 3, you're not flexible. So if you have ever purchased a home or sold a home, flexibility is key because it's a negotiation. You have some people that want to treat it like it's not a negotiation and they want to come in with a firm asking price and don't want to negotiate on it. And you have some individuals that, in my opinion, do a little bit better. They come in and they're a little bit more flexible and willing to negotiate, because it's not just the money that you can negotiate on. It's also different things within the house. Sometimes it's repairs that you can negotiate to be made by the seller in exchange for maybe paying a little bit more for the house, or vice versa. You can also negotiate with sometimes furniture. There are some pieces in the home that sometimes the homeowner is willing to part ways with as part of the negotiation. I have purchased 2 homes, and with both of those, we negotiated to get the washer and the dryer. That was a negotiation because we did not want to move in and then have to purchase a washer and a dryer. So we actually negotiated the washer and the dryer in the purchase of the home as well. And so there are a lot of things that you can negotiate when you're looking to purchase a home. But one of the reasons that your home, if you are a seller, may not be selling is that you are not being flexible enough. And when you're not flexible, a lot of times that puts a sour taste in the mouth of the potential buyer, because they're looking at this deal like, okay, you're not being flexible now. You're not really wanting to give any now. How does that look if I get under contract with you? I have a home inspection done, and then something comes up in the home inspection that the home inspector notices, and I come to you like, hey, the home inspector noticed we've got a little bit of mold in the bathroom. Can we get that looked into? Or they notice that this needs to be addressed, whatever it might be, and you want to send out an amendment to address concerns, and the seller, you might already have a negative view in your mind that the seller's not even going to respond to your request because they weren't even wanting to be flexible for the initial getting into the binding agreement to begin with. And I've been in that situation as well, in a house that I was looking to purchase, put an offer in on. Home had been sitting on the market for over 30 days. Seller was not wanting to negotiate with anything, did not want to negotiate with the price. Seller didn't want to negotiate with any of the things that were in the house that I thought, oh, I would like to have this as part of the house as well. They were really firm on just keeping their home on the market and not negotiating and getting what they wanted. And that home ended up sitting for a while. Not only did I not purchase it, I went back and checked it out online later, and they ended up pulling the listing. It was just a lot. It turns people off when you're not flexible with what you're trying to do with your home sale and everything. So what do you have to get to add to it?
You know what? You're so right. It can put a sour taste in the buyer's mouth when that seller is so firm that they do not want to engage in peaceful negotiation. And sometimes one of the things that I say is that sometimes sellers get fixed on negotiating and forget the fact that they're really trying to sell a home. They get into this negotiate. I gotta negotiate. I've got to come out on the top. And then bottom line is you just want to sell a home. And so if they can just release the stress of gotta negotiate, gotta, yes, be flexible. But if I think it goes both ways. If that seller shows good faith in being flexible, then I think also what I've seen in my many years of real estate is that the buyers say, well, they're trying to work with us. So yeah, we won't ask for this because they've already given us this. So let's do that. But I've seen it work the other way when that seller is not flexible and all they want to do is negotiate and forget the fact that they are really trying to sell a home.
Oh yes, and home prices have gone up a lot, but it's interesting. You still see a lot of penny pinching that goes on with everybody trying to get every single dollar that they possibly can, sometimes at the sake of costing you the deal. And that's not who's winning in that instance when, you know, it ends up costing you the deal and being able to get the home sold. So.
You are so right, because what happens is you get fixed on where you are and you don't look at the full picture. Because if the home sits on the market for another couple of months or so, where you are squabbling over potentially a $500 or $1,000, and the house sits there, then you've paid far more in mortgage payments for those months. So it is going to cost you not to negotiate or not to be flexible oftentimes, with not just in price, but in with terms and conditions as well.
Yeah, and one fact that I will mention that was also listed in this Wall Street Journal article is that 23.4%, so about 23% of homes that were for sale in August of this year, August of 2023, cut their asking price. And this was according to Zillow as well. So not even a quarter of the homes cut their asking price. And like we stated earlier, 46% of 46 days is the amount of days that homes on average sat on the market before they were, you know, sold, which was 5 days higher than a year ago. So you have homes sitting on the market longer, but less than a quarter of homes are actually cutting their asking price, which tells me that you have a lot of sellers that are just willing to sit on what they have. And you also have a lot of homes that are also initially being priced higher than what the market deems them to be worth. Because the market will let you know what your home is actually worth. If you post a home for sale for $500,000 and nobody's putting in an offer, and an identical home pops up for sale for $425,000, and that one gets 4 offers, it might be an indication that, you know what, the market has said that this is what people are willing to pay for your home, and how you may value your home is not how the market values your home. So you need to keep that in mind when it comes to negotiating and being flexible, because again, how you view your property is not how other people are going to view your property, and they don't hold the same emotional attachment to your home that you have to it. So you got to push those emotions aside and realize that, like you said, we are trying to sell a home. What's going to help us accomplish this home in a way that's beneficial for both the buyer and the seller? So
Key point, beneficial for both. And one of the most frustrating things that I've encountered as a real estate broker is an unmotivated seller, just testing the waters. And I say, you know, that is not a favorable position for a market, not at all.
moving on to the next one with number 4. So we have, it's overpriced. So affordability is the number one challenge for home buyers today. And homes that aren't priced competitively are not going to sell as quickly. And so we have seen a huge run up in home prices throughout the pandemic. And it actually started before the pandemic. So it was a direction where home prices were creeping up, but the pandemic definitely put rocket boosters behind those home prices, and they just shot through the roof. And this is the new norm of what we're living in now. We're not going to see home prices drop back down to those pre-pandemic levels. Home prices are what they are now, and this is the new norm that we have to live with and become accustomed to. And so with that, it's still important to know how to accurately price a home. The number one best way that I would recommend for a seller in terms of pricing a home is to have an appraisal done on the property before you even list the home for sale. And it's something that most sellers don't do. However, it is the best and most accurate way to list your home. Have an appraiser come out and appraise your home and tell you that, okay, this home is worth $460,000. And now, you can price it at $460,000, and you have an appraisal that has been done that can verify that this home is worth what you are listing it for. A lot of people take the route of consulting a realtor and asking them, how much is our home worth? And that is not a bad route to take as well. There are tools that realtors and real estate agents have at their disposal to be able to help with pricing out how much your home would be worth through what's called a comparative market analysis. So they use other homes that have sold in the area recently, ideally within the last 6 months, and they see what those homes have sold for. And if those homes are comparable to your home, they can take away maybe a bedroom here or add a bathroom here, but ultimately they're looking for homes that are very comparable to your home that have sold within the last 6 months to a year. It could be a year, but ideally 6 months. And that gives them a good idea of what your home is worth on the market. And that's how most people tend to price their homes, is through that. However, as you might be able to tell, when you've got a lot of different real estate agents, you might have, for one particular property, if you had 5 or 6 different real estate agents pricing it, you might get 5 or 6 different values for that home, and they might vary by a lot. Now, the same could happen on the appraiser side. If you have 5 appraisers appraising a home, you could get 5 different valuations, but my thoughts are that those valuations are not going to vary quite as widely as what you might find on the agent side of that. And that's because an appraiser is trained at valuing homes, whereas agents have tools available to them to help make this process a little bit better, a little bit more streamlined. But again, the appraisal is going to be the best way to value that home. And so since, like I said, most people do not use the appraisal as the number one way of determining what they should list their home for, you end up with a lot of homes that are overpriced on the market. And the market will sniff those overpriced homes out quickly, and they will sit on the market, as you see happening now, where people see a home is listed at, maybe it might even be listed at $350,000, and no one's buying it. Why? Because no one's wanting to pay $350,000 for that. But if you drop the price down to a mark where people are willing to pay, that's the market letting you know, this is what we're willing to pay for that house, and you'll start to see those offers roll in. So dropping the price of those overpriced homes is something that can help get your property moving.
Okay, Frederick, one point I want to just press rewind just for a second. Go back to what you said. You get that appraiser to give you their valuation for the property in the form of an appraisal. And you said 460,000 is the value it comes in. Then you have concrete information that this property is valued at 460, and you can put it on the market at 460. Absolutely true. You can absolutely do that. One thing I'd like to just put out there to our listeners, and especially to our sellers, if you have that 460 appraisal, consider going in with a little bit lower price point for as your asking price. Let's say you go in and you say 440. We're going to list it for 440. My thinking is, and what I've seen before is that what you're able to say, we're willing to sell it to you for 440. And you can walk in day one on closing day with $20,000 in equity in your property. And that is in itself is a negotiating tool. because now you've already up front set the tone that, hey, I'm willing to negotiate. I'm giving you 20,000 off the bat. And buyers, in my experience, have been fixed on, we're getting 20,000 in equity when we sign the paper and the ink dry. So we have not to ask for near as many items as conditions for going under contract. So set the tone up front.
That is a very, very good tip to give, because yeah, that's true. You're already setting the right tone that, you know what, we have appraisal on record, 460. We're gonna let this home go for 20,000 less than that. Already, we're just gonna give you that equity. So no, that's a very good, and that can be very attractive for buyers that are looking to purchase homes as well. So no, I that is a very good one to add. Moving on to our number 5, you hired the wrong agent. This is something that can also keep your home sitting on the market for much longer than what it should have. In addition to maybe your agent overpriced the home when you were consulting them about what you should list it for. There is also the thing that maybe you just went with the agent because they were a friend. I've seen a lot of those. Well, I got a friend who's a real estate agent, so I'm good there. Or you went with a family member. Oh, my uncle's a real estate agent. My cousin does real estate, so I'm good there. I'll just consult with them. But maybe they're not the best person to sell your home. Maybe your home is located in a area that they're not familiar with. Maybe it's located in a price point that they normally don't deal with, because how you market a $250,000 property is going to be different than how you market a $550,000 property. You're dealing with different types of buyers. And also, as an agent, if you're receiving a little bit more commission for the higher price home, you might need to put a little bit more work into actually finding those buyers, because there are a lot fewer buyers that can afford that $500,000 or $600,000 home than what you have that can afford a $250,000 home. So there are a lot of different ways in which you might market those two properties as well. But in general, you might have also an agent that just took the whole approach of list it and forget it. And what that means is that you have an agent that just decided to post a listing, throw up some photos, and not do another thing to try and get that home sold other than just waiting for the phone to ring. And that is not the best approach to getting your home sold. For one, what type of photos did they even put up? Are they photos that are going to entice home buyers to want to come and see your property, entice agents to want to show your property? Or did they throw up, some photos that are out of focus, or some photos that are not well lit, or some photos that don't really show you the true potential and character of the home? I've seen a ton of home photos, and I've seen photos that show you a room and you see the corner of the room. So all you see is 2 white walls coming together and you see the floor. That's not telling me anything about this room. So maybe it behooves you to get an agent who, if they know that taking photos is their weakness, they're willing to hire a photographer for $100 or $200 to go out and take some really good photos of your home so that it can draw people in. All of this is part of having the right agent in your corner that can help get your home sold, not the agent that's just going to pull down whatever photos are old photos, maybe, because I've seen that too. You have some listings that are just old listings, or they pull down photos from the last time this home was listed, and they use that for the new time this home is listed. It doesn't even look like the same house at that point. And so you really want to make sure you get the right agent. And that could be a reason that your home is not selling.
Exactly. So true. And another thing is, what I would encourage those potential sellers who are considering putting them up is consider their house on the market. It's consider the questions that you're asking that agent. Ask them questions such as, how many listings have you had in the last 12 months? What percentage did those listings sell for in compared to the listing price. You know, ask them, have you, if they're only working with buyers, because some agents just generally don't like to do listings, because a listing agent and a buyer's agent have two different lists of criteria that they're operating by. So find an agent who that is their specialty. They list homes. They have a good percentage rate of list and sales, and selling souls according to the list price, the percentage of the list price. Agents that go that extra mile that you're talking about, using professional photos and of giving you a list of what is their next step. We're here at point A, this is B, this is what you can expect from me. You should go into that listing agreement with an agent, or choose an agent who you know the steps that they're going to be taking to marketing your property. Not just someone who says, yes, I can list it for you. Oh, I'll be happy to. Yes, they'll be happy to, but will you be happy with the results as well? And both parties need to be happy. So go in it expecting some expectations out of that listing agent.
Absolutely. Well, that wraps up our 5 things, or 5 reasons rather, that your home might not be selling. And so that is going to be the end for this podcast. We hope it was some beneficial information that helps just inform you to think a little bit differently. Again, we're going to be doing this routinely from week to week to just put out information that will help inform you on what's going on in the real estate market today, as well as doing an episode which will give you more information about how to best prepare yourself to accomplish your home ownership goals and financial goals as well. So thank you for tuning in. Thank you for joining us. And we hope that you will follow us on social media as well. You can follow me on Instagram and TikTok. I'm GA Loan Officer on Instagram and TikTok. You can also follow me on, connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm Frederick Middlebrooks on LinkedIn. And please do connect with Cynthia Davis as well. Again, she's the owner and broker of Alert Properties and Alert Real Estate School. You can find Alert Properties at alertpropertiesre.com is the website. And so please do reach out to us if you have questions, if you would like any additional information. Don't hesitate to call, and we'll be happy to serve and assist you. So
Absolutely.
that's all we have. And till next time, take care, be blessed.